So this is actually, so this is gonna be a short, about 30 minutes. We had 8th grade in here in 30 minutes. So, but it is full participation, and you can kind of just coach your technology. It'll be very interactive. All right, today we're gonna talk about stamp to learning. And as I look at this crowd here, we have a lot of good stampers already. This is just a training to make sure that we're all consistent across the board in every class and what the apprentices are looking for. So let's start with the learning objective. We're stamping the learning. I'm going to read the black, and you guys will read the highlighted yellow, okay? Learning objective. Teachers will be able to
articulate how and when to stamp the learning
within their lessons and
identify best instructional practices
when stamping the learning. We put an emphasis on articulating and identifying what does it mean to stamp the learning. So what does it mean to stamp the learning? Within a lesson, the teacher stamps the learning to ensure that students clearly understand and can do what?
Articulate
what they've learned before. Remember, we already know the content, right? Our goal is to make sure that students understand. So when we're stamping, what do the students understand? What can they articulate? So we have a spot form that we want you to analyze and look at. We're not looking at the entire spot form. Just look at the part that says stamp for learning. And I want you to look at the language that they use in spot form. This is worth 1 point on your observation. And we'll give you about 2 minutes. What we want you to do is kind of just read that part, just the part that says stamping, not the whole spot. Only the page. Okay. Which key ideas from the spot rubric should teachers pay attention to when planning for instruction? So go ahead and read that and have a table talk. What parts of this should I focus? If I'm planning my lesson and I want to get a 15 or higher on my spot, what should I be focusing on in this part of the spot? On the actual wording of the slide right here. Throughout the lesson. I know you're not kids, it just happened. So. All right, so as I was monitoring the room, I heard the conversation from the math team. Can one of you share some of the keywords you found in the spot rubric?
Yes, we said the student engagement opportunities throughout the lesson and the instructional transition.
Instructional transition. We're kind of saying the same thing, right? So I'm going to use this as an exemplar response, right? Because remember, our learning objective is looking at how and when do we stamp the learning. So when they talked about the transitions, during transitions, that's when we're stamping the learning throughout the lesson. It's not going to be just one time and then we are done, right? So think about your 3 parts of your lesson. It's going to be your there should be a stamp at each part of those lessons, which goes with that. So some of those keywords that I want you to focus on is we stamp, consistently stamping throughout the lesson, not just one time and then we're done. Because you want to check for learning before you go to that next part. Throughout the lesson, of course, during and after engagement opportunities, and then of course instructional transition. Okay? So we're going to stamp from here.
So I snipped this from 6th grade reading. This is how they format their QSA, right? When we are walking classrooms, it's not our goal to figure out how many times I can take some points off from this teacher. You already have a minimum of, is it 2 and 3, 3 and 2? 3 in the first teach, 2 in your reteach QSAs, future SAs. Every time you get to your QSA opportunity, this is a maximum of 4 points you should be getting 4 points. If we're in your classroom and you are on the QSSA moment, y'all, do it with fidelity so you can get 4 points. We're already at, well, we're not going to say that, but you're already getting, you can get 4 points just off that slide. So let me tell you how. Starting with 1, engagement strategies, writing. So, engagement strategies, writing. Every time y'all do a QSA, students are doing what? They're writing. So we can say, like, when we are discussing what we just observed in the classroom, we can almost every time, nope, they were doing a QSSA, students were writing. Then the question is, were they writing with fidelity, or was the teacher just? Nope. And so I like to play devil's advocate. No, the teacher was aggressively monitoring, even addressing misconceptions. I noticed that the teacher spent a little bit more time looking at the writing samples from the EB group over there. That's how you get that full 2 points. Now, if you just circling and walking, around and walking, you're shopping, you're gonna be about right here. Like a 1. Oops, I can't touch it. I'm not used to the screen, y'all. You're gonna be at a 1, okay? To get the maximum 2 points, not only are they writing, but you are progress monitoring your students and addressing misconceptions. This morning, we observed Miss Sanchez, and she does a great job of this star. When she is observing students as they are writing, when she sees a misconception, she will, hey, don't forget to right here, see, this is what you, and then she'll continue monitoring. It's not always whole group, but we see her working with those lower students, those lower students. Okay, next, use students' answers and questions and stamp the key points. Go back to the reading slide. When you get here, the easiest thing to do, I was telling Miss Joseph this the other day, use the student's answer. We know that this student, we already know I stamped it and I saw their answer. So mentally, no, you can do a warm call. Hey, Johnny. So Johnny knows once Miss Joseph is up here, Miss Joseph's gonna be calling on me because she already told me that she's coming back to me to read my answer. That's what we call a warm call. So Johnny, you have my exemplar response. Go ahead and read. Student reads, and then let's say the student is reading low or you're in a T building and we can't hear because it's the AC. You take that paper and you read and chunk it and point out key points, okay? And then go back. This is where you get the point for use student answers and questions and stamp key points. Star. That's 4 points right there. Okay, next slide.
Okay. All right, so what are some best practices when stamping the learning? Remember, this is our spot. We're consistently stamping throughout the lesson, during transitions, and student engagement opportunities. Step 1, the teacher identifies a student to share an exemplar response. Dawn, I noticed that you had a really good answer. I'm going to use your response to stamp the learning, okay? You want to verbally say it so you get that point. Because when you think about IRT, and we know that you're stamping, but you get some from IRT, it's someone that doesn't know our campus, don't know you, so say it. I'm going to use Dawn's response to stamp the learning. That's step 1. And this is the foundation, right? Step 2, the teacher verbally paraphrases the student response, right? I've seen teachers pick up the student, after a teacher will say, they'll read the student response verbatim, but then they'll point out those keywords, right? So I noticed in Dawn's answer, she refers to a scenario about when Sean was making a bad decision based on his emotions, right? This is an example of emotional thinking. So I'm taking Sean's answer and I'm just kind of reiterating those key points, right? That's step 2. Step 3. The teacher integrates the learning objective into the exemplar response to connect the learning. This is where we get a little confused, where some people get confused here, right? Because you want to make sure that that learning objective and that answer ties together. If we make that connection, that's where the actual stamping comes in, right? So this goes back to our learning objective about emotional thinking versus logical thinking. Remember, emotional thinking is when I make decisions based on my feelings, my emotions. Logical thinking is using research and my brain to make decisions. So I time to my LO to the student example. Then, that final step, the teacher ensures that students understand and can articulate before they move on. For example, so remember class, we talked about emotional learning versus emotional thinking versus logical thinking. Remember, emotional thinking is when we use our what? Our emotions to make decisions. Whereas when you're a logical thinker, we are using what? Our brains, right? Our research-based information. All right? So now that we have it, we're going to stamp it and then move it. So we'll make the next question. When is the best time to stamp the learning in your lesson? I want you to talk about that because there's been some questions about, okay, when do I do this? When does this come up in the lesson? Talk to your table about when do we consistently stamp learning throughout the lesson. Where in your lesson will you see this?
When do you stamp? How do you remind yourself?
All right, class.
Yes.
All right, reading, Mrs. Foster, I like that. Can you share your response, please?
You're gonna stamp it anytime they talk, breathe, write, sign language, any type of communication, social action, whatever, stamp it. So, but basically, Ms. Beyonce told us, the only time she tells reading not to stamp it at the beginning of our slides, it's like a prior knowledge question. So she said, because that really doesn't have anything to do, or it's nothing that has been taught, don't stamp it in. But any chance that they, if anytime they talk, write, are able to share, you want to stamp the learning and make sure that they understand.
And I'm gonna emphasize that because remember, we're looking at what are the students learning. So would you stamp, so were they part of your do now? Like would you start with the stamping your do now? Probably not, right? It's until you get to that and start teaching the content. Because you want to say, okay, let's see what they're learning now. Let's go ahead and start stamping this. Then you might want to add anything for the tables. Okay. So let's look at future goal essay opportunities. Would be the perfect time to stamp, right? And we do 3 of them. We do, again, those transitions. And then of course, student activities. I know like in different content areas, in the reading part of the lesson, they may give you like a graphic organizer to complete or some type of activity to complete during that reading part, right? And even your at-bats too. That would be also a good time to stamp to see if they really understand the activity that you did in that lesson. All right, how many of you know where to find the stamp in your curriculum documents?
You often skip it.
Uh-huh.
When you're annotating the slides, you kind of skip over it.
Yeah. So when you open up your district slide, on the misconceptions page, right here, it says stamping the learning.
Yeah.
So be intentional when you're planning your lessons. Be very intentional with what you are stamping. You don't just stamp random stuff, right? Make sure that you are hitting those key points when you are stamping. There's one in every content level. This happened to be reading. And this is one for social studies. It says be sure to stamp. And then it will tell you, of course, what they're going to be learning about in different sessions. And there's one in every content area. Art of thinking has one, science has one, math has one as well. All right, so we're going to show a video, and she just stepped out, so I'm going to just kind of preview it. So we have a lot of really good teachers on this grade level. We can only feature 3 for the video today. So these are our stamp teams, and so you'll see like real live examples of how stamping look with students.
Okay, sorry about that. So, I was talking to, I don't know what you just said. but I was talking to Miss Miles when we were tasked with this item for PLC, and I was just telling her, like, I feel like we have a lot of rock star teachers here. So I like real world examples. I think that's how we learn best. So I think everybody understands how to stamp. I think we may struggle with what it should look like. So I recorded some stamp kings on campus. We got them here. What are we talking for? Well, let's watch in action. So you do have one stamp king in the building on the 7th grade team. We're gonna kick it off with him. Oh, I'm sorry. I gotta give you what my look fors are before. Sorry, I don't get a point for that. While you are watching this video, I want you to point out some instructional practices that you can, that you saw within the teacher exemplars, and then what can you take away to incorporate in your own practice? All right.
All right, guys, 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. All right, I had an exemplary response from the day. Can you read for the class, please? Okay, the reason that Nathaniel's answer is exemplary is because he brings up the idea of land grants. That is what Mexico used to encourage settlers to come in from America. As we look at my response, Mexico used a strategy of granting land to impresarios who were tasked with recruiting settlers to populate the region, okay? So that is how the Mexican government used different strategies. They hired impresarios and then they used land grants for encouragement. Who can remember, Grady, you gave us the answer before, which region of Texas were these land grants issued in? Coastal Plains. So let's stamp that learning in our brains for the DOL, the strategies that Mexico used to populate Texas. Good.
And let's come back in at 1. Let's bring out the DOL right quick. I'm the only listener to. It says, who prepared to use graph to determine if two variables are correlated? Partner A, how find partner B? Alright, partner A, you have 15 seconds, it's no longer run. Alright, partner B, 15 seconds, it's no longer run. Okay? Alright. Let's come back in at 2. And let's come back in at 1. I heard that zero response. Look at this here from Alice. Alice, this one. So I heard 2 words. She said 2 McFly, 2 variables. So we're going to step along with it. Alright, great job, one more time. Alright, let's move on.
The student shared her response, you just can't hear it right now.
She said, Tiffany prefers write down the form. Class, is that right? Yeah, she's right. She would write down the form. She said she would multiply pi times 3 times 3. She said my answer is supposed to be 28.27. She said next, according to the formula, she's like, here it is. This is how I got my answer. Based on the calculation she said from the formula, I know my answer is correct. Is she right, class? She's absolutely right. And there was 4 example responses that I read, just don't have time. Class, what are we talking about today? We're talking about volume. What does volume mean? What's inside this container? When I give you a soda, is there something inside? That's what we're finding today. Volume of this symbol. Very good. You were great. Right on. Let's keep moving.
I showed this video to one of my former colleagues at Westside, and she was like, "That's the teachers at your school?" I was like, "Well, I have to talk to the teachers."
And the thing is that we're seeing it in most of the classrooms that people in this room. We just didn't have time to get everybody.
So let's go ahead and turn and talk. We're gonna give y'all 3 minutes to turn and talk. What are some instructional practices that stood out to you, and some takeaways that you can add to your lesson? Let's come back in 3, let's come back in 2, and let's come back in 1. Okay, and I have one teacher out from this time.
We said that we liked how Mr. K explained why the exemplary response was exemplary. So definitely using that, because some of them will be like, oh, you chose favorites, this is exemplary because, and he explained exactly why. So that's what we talked about.
We said the same thing, just making sure that you're actually reading out what the student put and tying it directly to the objective so that they're understanding and actually seeing why we're stamping at that point.
I like the way Mr. K not only, even though he did shoot the exemplar, he did also pull something that another student had previously said to tie into that, in his answer, and also,
So, same with Mr. K, I love how he uses the students' response. He's very thorough, that's the strength of it, very thorough, you're engaged, like, you don't have a choice but to be engaged when he's talking. It's like, hey, all eyes on me, this is why this is exemplar, so star. With Mr. DeBose. Mr. DeBose, again, that was that moment where we can't hear what this student said, but I am here, I read it, and now I'm gonna tell you why, and I'm up here explaining it. That was exemplar. And Mr. Anderson. Mr. Anderson's strength is he is not putting on the show. He is actually aggressively progress monitoring students, and actually reading what they wrote. And star for him, he links it to the LO before he stamps it, which he got another point for that. Going back to Mr. DeBose, you remember when he came up and he explained why? What was the one thing?
His real
Real
world.
world.
Well, yeah, he got a point for that. He didn't actually say stamp the learning. And so, okay, we're always in his classroom. I know that was his stamp. We know it was his stamp. But y'all, there's always people in your classrooms. We don't always know, So, for the sake of your points, you stay up. I'm gonna thread the L. We're gonna thread up, and I'm stamping the learning. Actually say it. Okay, some of you do it so effortlessly that someone may miss it, and you don't want to get your spot and say, I did that. No, like actually say it, okay? And I actually recorded Mr. K twice. The first recording, again, he's one that he does it effortlessly, and I thought it was amazing, but he had left off the stamp learning, so we went back and recorded it. So just add breadcrumb. That's what we mean by breadcrumb. Like, make it, make it easy for us,
Yeah.
and yeah.
It's undeniable that you
Yes,
stamp.
make it easy on us. Ooh, I heard her say exemplar. Let me listen. Oh, at one point. Okay, this morning we went to Miss Burks and she was here, and I just remember I was kind of gazing off. Okay, and I remember she was addressing me, and all of a sudden I heard her say, and we gonna stamp the learning with that. Okay, let's move on. And I was like, oh shoot, she stamped the learning. Like, use those little breadcrumbs for us. We see a lot of teachers, but most importantly, when you have people in your room that are not your appraiser, everyone is different. Mr. Knighton, he's very even keeled. It's a good way to put it. He's like he's like Miss Burks and Miss Knighton. Y'all are like even keeled. You have to be listening to actually hear them like thread the L or stamp the learning, because they're not a Mr. K. You are. Mr. K is up and down. He is loud. The styles are different, which is okay. But to make sure you get those points, breadcrumbs. So if I am gazing off, I heard her say it. Okay, y'all got it?
Yes, and there was a question in the 8th grade about do we do the actual
Oh, yeah.
stamp, right? You're not gonna lose a point if you don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is, the kids like it, and it gets them engaged, then do it. You know, just to meet your class preferences. But as long as you are saying, oh, we're gonna use this response to stamp for learning, and then that's right there, your person like, oh, okay, she's stamping, and that'll give you that point. All right, so we're coming to the end, so we're gonna use, go ahead.
Because I think that everything we do are based off the future will say the multiple response.
Mhm.
Because it's not just one student or an individual or how would you suggest do that? Because I'll be like, for instance, if I say, okay, I got 98% of us got it right, are there any questions? Does everybody understand this now? Is that the correct way to do that? Or how do we do it on the multiple?
She said multiple choice.
Multiple choice, yeah, like you're doing at-bats, right?
Well, at best,
A
we have
whiteboard?
them in our, whiteboard.
Well, if you're doing a turn and talk, you can stamp the learner with a turn and talk, but with a whiteboard, I mean, it's probably not the best moment to stamp the learning.
You can just have a student maybe explain why that answer
Yeah,
is
yeah,
correct,
yeah,
and
why
then
it's
use that
correct.
explanation.
Yeah.
False. False was the answer. Okay, Ashley, why was false the answer? Because, da-da-da. I like that answer.
And then
She-
tie it back to your.
Hello, and then
Yeah.
we're gonna stamp it.
But that's the main piece. You wanna make sure that you're tying in student responses to what are they learning. So here's just to sum it all up. Number one, we're going to do what? Integrate the
Learning objective.
into stamping the learning. That's the piece that usually goes missing when we're stamping. We get to integrate that learning objective. Number two, we're gonna use what?
Student exemplar.
When we are stamping the learning. Remember, we already know this stuff. We already know AOT, science, social studies, math. The point is, do the kids know? And how are we figuring out if they know? Number three, make sure that students can clearly articulate their understanding of the learning objective, right? And Rose said students, and she's gonna talk more about that in her second part here. But they can articulate what is happening during the learning, in the learning objective. And then number four, we're going to
Verbally reinforce
what students are learning. Then say stamp the learning. And we're gonna go over some of the don'ts about stamping the learning. But make sure that you are reiterating what they're saying, taking out those key words that's gonna help them make connections with the learning objective.
In the don'ts, the teacher says stamp the learning and then nothing was stamped. Ooh, I really like that answer. We're gonna stamp the learning with that. Okay, next. Okay, like, we have seen that happening, guys. Actually expound. Or the teacher stamps the learning and only one student can articulate what they've learned. So we all know Lee has the answer. So or Grady. Y'all, I don't even know these 7th and 8th graders, but I know who's walking 7th and 8th grade. It's interesting how I've learned the names, because when we walk these rooms, the teachers are calling on these same kids to the point where I'm like, oh, I know who that kid is. So again, we know Grady got the answer. I don't want to hear from Grady. We want to see you actually progress monitoring and choosing an actual student response, not the student that we know has the answer. We want to know that all students have the answer. okay? And 3, teacher does not identify an exemplar response from students, but stamps the learning anyway. So, all right, everyone, sounds like we all got that. Okay, we're gonna stamp the learning. And let's stamp the learning. Okay, and let's move on. Y'all, we're seeing that y'all are coming back. You're coming back up, whole group, and you are running through whatever slide it is. Let's just say whatever it is, and then you end and you say, "Everybody got that?" Okay, and we're gonna stamp the learning and move on.
Well, what did they
What
stamp?
are we stamping?
Yeah. So, y'all ever say, what did you stamp?
Have y'all heard them in these classrooms? Well, what are we stamping? And we're all like, okay. Like, actually, like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so that's it in our presentation. Unless you have any questions or questions there, all right, we are clear. We are stamping the learning.
Stamping the learning.
All right.